You may be seated.
That's great. Thank you to all of you who've had a part in leading today or serving today, teaching today. Well done. We've just begun reading in the Old Testament, book of Joshua. Israelites are on the east side of the Jordan. That's where we've left them. And the Lord has told Joshua, now that Moses is dead, you be strong, you be courageous, do not be afraid. Lead the people of Israel to the other side. Take control of the land. And the Lord promised to be with him, Joshua, as he was with Moses. So Joshua tells the officers, tell the people, get them ready, let's go. A little Bible trivia. If you're an expert in the scriptures, you may know this. Maybe you're going to learn something today. What are the 2.5 tribes of Israel that requested to stay on the east side of the Jordan and not go over? It's in Numbers 32. They came to Moses and asked, since the lands were good, could they stay over on this side and not cross over? And they made a deal as long as they would not only go over and fight for their brothers, but lead them in the fight, then they could stay there, go fight, come back and stay with their families after it's over. Moses agreed. Do you know the answer? Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. And some of you are saying right now, I got it. And a lot of you are going, who are they? Joshua tells them the plan. They agreed, told Joshua at the end of chapter 1, whatever you have commanded us, we'll do. Wherever you send us, we'll go. Just as we fully obeyed Moses, we will now obey you. And so they would fight the fight with their brothers as one until the task was finished. Now, Joshua did what Moses had done before him, sent some spies into the land. Joshua only sent 2. The 12 who came back to Moses, most of them came back with a bad report. What did these 2 come back and say? At the end of chapter 2, the Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us. And where did they learn that? Where did they hear that? From Rahab. We learned about her last week. So the people of Israel had been camping at Shittim, a little farther east, and now they're going to move closer to the river. That's chapter 3, verse 1, and we'll pick it up in verse 2. You can read along or listen. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priests carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not go near it. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves. God's going to do something amazing. Then he tells the priests, pick up the ark, carry it. The people will follow you. And then God tells Joshua something. Verse 7, and the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all of Israel, so that they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. And tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. God was going to lift up Joshua among the people so they would not doubt him. Just as he did with Moses, he wanted to make his authority and his relationship known with Joshua so they would always follow him, and they would. And then he tells the priests, step into the water when you get to the Jordan. Go get in the water. Before I read this next part, you may begin to notice something. If you're reading this and the story kind of starts and stops, I'll get to that in a second, but this chapter 3 and 4, you almost have to read it all together. We're not going to, so we'll get to chapter 4 next time. We're going to leave you hanging a little bit, but reading this may make you feel like if you had a teenager in your house and you were trying to teach them to drive, for some reason they early on start revving it up and you take off and your head bounces back, and then all of a sudden for no reason they slam on the brakes and your head about hits the dash. And that never happened with my girls, so you're going to have to imagine what it must have been like in your house, or all of us could. But our daughters drove perfectly, just so you know. But this starting and stopping thing in Joshua chapter 3, it's a little odd. It starts and it tells part of the story, like tell them to pick up the ark and move. They're going to. The next time he says that, he says, tell them to get into the water. They're going to do that. And a little later, you'll find out what happens to the water, but not yet. Makes you wonder why he's doing this, but let's keep reading for now, picking it up in verse 9. Joshua said to the Israelites, "Come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you'll know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. See, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all of the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap." The starting and stopping continues. Joshua tells the Israelites, choose 12 men, one from each tribe. Why? You'll have to wait and see. Doesn't say yet. Tell the priest to pick up the ark and start moving. Good. Tell the priest to move and step into the waters. Good. Tell the priest when they step into the waters will stop. Wow. Why is he doing this, writing this way? To build suspense, maybe? To hide or highlight some important parts, maybe? One of the reasons, I think, is to get to the next part of the story, which we will get to next time. It's a significant part of the story. I won't read the rest. You can, but I'll tell you a little bit about what happened. The priests did what they were told to do. As soon as they stepped into the water stopped. They piled up upstream, as he would say it, at Adam, a town called Adam, upstream, a town they would have known at the day. And something else we learn is that the Jordan is not at normal river height and speed right now. It's at flood stage. So it's a formidable river. But for God, no worries, no problems, no fears. He halts the waters, one miracle on top of another, as now the ground is dried. So the priests carry the ark into the middle of the river, and there they wait, and the crowd, the army, goes with them and behind them and now ahead of them, and finally step into Canaan. Have you thought about why God did this? Why did God do this miracle where the water stopped flowing in the Jordan and backing up upstream and drying out? Well, first, I think it's practical. They had to cross over. How else could they do it? You don't take that many people on a boat or two across the water at flood stage of the Jordan, of course. Second, though, it's a sign to Israel that God is with Joshua. You heard what he said. Today I'll begin to exalt you in the eyes of all of Israel, so they know I am with you as I was with Moses. There's your evidence. There's the proof. To bolster their faith in Joshua, and third, to bolster their faith in the Lord himself. This is how you'll know that the living God is among you, that he will certainly drive up before you and list them. If God can do that, he can do this. If God can do this, he can do that. Do you see? Well, you can read the rest on your own, as I said. We'll get to chapter 4 next time. But what are the lessons from here? Maybe a couple. Here's 3, maybe. First, there is a time for planning and a time for preparation and a time for prayer, but at some point, it's time to just obey. The people did have some time to prepare, time to think, time to wonder, but that time has passed and now it's time to act. In Conquest and Crisis, the author says, when the time came to actually move toward Jordan, Joshua did not request an extension of time in order to let the Jordan subside. He did not plead for a different route so as to avoid confrontation with the enemy. He did not call for a caucus, a commission, or a committee report in 5 copies with this committee to be duly organized and named the Committee on Crisis in the Contemporary Situation. I like that. That's funny. That's stuff we would do. You know what Joshua did when the Lord said it's time to move? He moved. It's time to speak. He spoke. It's time to move the people. He obeyed. Of course, there was preparation, consecration. Is this the time to move with a flooded, intimidated, overflowing Jordan River? Yes. Why? God said move. So Joshua gives the word. The priests pick up the ark. They step into the waters stop, the waters dry up, the ground is dry. Now, let's move. And they do. Once again, faith is not a suggestion for peoples of faith. Faith is a requirement. There's no way to get across the river unless faith leads you on. Unless God does this, you have to believe in him. Once again, the old scriptures are true again. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Faith must lead us to obedience. Number 2, Davis points out what you might have noticed if you keep reading especially, but the ark of the Lord, it's said in different ways, but it's mentioned 17 times in 2 chapters. The ark. What's the big deal with the ark? The ark is the presence of God. To be clear, God is not confined to any place. He's not in prison somewhere. But he chooses to dwell there on the ark, or in the mercy seat with the angels bending in over it. That's where he has chosen to remain. And every time they put up the temporary tabernacle in the most holy place with the ark, that's where God would be. In the permanent temple in Jerusalem, the ark would remain in the holiest of holies. There is where God was. If it is there, God is there. God is here with them. And for us who have no ark, well, we don't need an ark. We don't need a movable tabernacle to put up and take down and move across the land. We don't need a permanent temple to go to. We don't need anything symbolic really to tell us what we already know is the truth from Scripture, the promises of God, that God is for those who are in Christ. God is here. He has chosen to be with us. He has chosen to be not beside us or in front of us, but within us, choosing to dwell not just among His people, but in the skin of His people. How? Through His own Spirit. So we might say we're something like an ark. Maybe I could say that. We're like an ark of God with the Spirit Himself with us. But I don't have to use that kind of language and make it up. Paul beat me to it, not calling us an ark, but a temple. 1 Corinthians 3, don't you know, he says, that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst, and later reiterates it, and you together are the temple. So we get together as a church, as the people of God, and God is here among us and in us. But it's more personal than that, because Paul goes on in chapter 6 to say, do you not know that your body, your own body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? The presence of God was at the ark. So the people knew He is with us. But the presence of God is even more present to us than to them. Some folks I know say, I wish God would just show up. He's here. I wish God were present among us. He is. He is more present today than He was with Joshua and the Israelites crossing the Jordan. The Spirit of God lives among us. For those who are in Christ, He is in us. Amazing. And 3, the Israelites are told to follow the ark. Why? Did you hear it? So they would know which way to go, since they had never been this way before. Well, a few of the spies got to go over, but a lot of those are dead. Now 2 spies went over and came back, but it's just 2. Now everybody is going to see it, but they don't know which way to go. What do? Follow the ark. And today, we who have no ark, what do? Follow the Lord. Tomorrow you'll wake up. Maybe your Monday will be just like last Monday and the Monday before. I don't know. Maybe it'll be new, a brand new tomorrow, since none of us know what it'll be. And maybe it'll be incredible, the best day ever. And maybe it will be a challenge. Maybe it will scare you what you will see tomorrow. I don't know. But tomorrow, as you walk into a day, into a place, on an adventure, you don't know what you will see or face. How do you know which way to go? Follow the Lord. Follow the Lord. In the old classic cartoon, the Disney great Peter Pan tells Wendy, second start to the right and straight on till morning. That's the way to get to Neverland. I would say that's a little vague. What? Which? I'm kind of thinking if Wendy and her 2 brothers tried to follow those directions, they would have gotten lost. You know how they got to Neverland? I know it's a fairy tale. You know how they got to Neverland? I don't think with good directions. They followed Peter Pan, who knew the way. Do you know how to get to the Father in heaven? Do you know how to get to heaven? Do you know how to live a righteous life? Do you know how to be a Christian, how to be a disciple of Jesus? Do you know how, or really, do you know which way to go? The answer is not really following some great directions given out by some to another. It's really following in the footsteps of Jesus himself. Sometimes getting there is difficult. Some might say impossible. How do I get there to where I want to be? Sometimes the impossible becomes possible, even in human terms. Even in human terms. Can I give you two examples I've given many years ago, but I love them. May 29th, 1953, two men, last names Hillary and Tenzing, became the first, they say, to summit at Mount Everest and live to tell about it. That Mount Everest, I think you know, is the tallest mountain in the world. And up until that time, everybody must have figured it's unconquerable. You can't get there and back here to tell about it until those two men did it. Now, everybody wants to go to the top, and almost anybody can. Did you know you can? With a few weeks in preparation, making sure your body is ready, and about $50,000, and the amount keeps climbing, you can go. 1 year after those men did that, May 6, 1954, in Oxford, England, a man named Roger Bannister ran a mile in just under 4 minutes. It had never been done before, and for the most part was impossible. Everybody would tell you that. Everybody thought maybe you could, but nobody had until Bannister did it. For all those years, nobody could do it until he did it, and 6 weeks later, another man did it, John Landry. Within 1 year, 37 runners had done it. A year later, 300 had done it. It became so commonplace, even now a high schooler has done it. I don't know, maybe you can do it. Isn't it something, though? Two examples where the impossible, even in human terms, becomes somehow possible. And as soon as one person or two people do it, apparently anybody can, and they do. But what happened in Joshua's day, no man could have done. Nobody could have gotten to the other side of the Jordan, not without the Lord's help. It was truly impossible. But I wonder if they thought back to that event some 40 years ago. Some of them were very young back then, but now they're 40 years older. I wonder if they remember standing there at the Red Sea with Moses as he lifts his hands and the sea parts and they walk across on dry ground. And I wonder if some of those who were not alive back then remember hearing the stories of their parents who are now dead in the desert, if they didn't hear the stories of what God did in another body of impassable water. How did they get through back then, and how did they get through now? The Lord did it. The Lord did it, and that's all you can say. Campbell writes about a Christian conference after one speaker spoke very eloquently about how to cope with discouragement. And after that lesson, 3 people came to that speaker to talk to him. One was a young mother who did not sleep the night before because her husband came home at 10:30 at night and announced he was divorcing her. Another was a minister whose teenage daughter was rebelling against God. And then there was the Christian woman whose husband just began his treatments for brain cancer. The preacher had said, the trouble is that we are facing problems that we cannot solve. We are helpless. I'd like to tell you the 4-minute mile can be reached and you can do it. You can climb to Everest. Maybe you can. But there are some things we face which we cannot solve. It is beyond us. We can do something, but we cannot fix it. And so we cry out to the Lord of God above, help us. We fall on our faces as our knees buckle and we cry out, please help me. Back to Joshua. Why would God choose now during a flood stage for the people to cross Jordan? Maybe it was to show what is not impossible with God. Did you hear what Joshua said? This is how you'll know the living God is among you. How could they know God could do it? He's done it. And he's doing it again. Davis writes, Yahweh delights to show his might in the face of utter helplessness. Apparently, so we can't help but see. that we contribute nothing to our own deliverance. And then he goes on to say, perhaps he brings us into these impossible circumstances, situations so bleak and so helpless, for the very purpose of impressing upon us that if we make it through, if we endure it, if we're not overwhelmed and washed away, will only be because of his grace and power. Do you know how we can conquer our fears? Do you know how we can survive this day? Do you know how we can be freed from our sins? Do you know how, even if we die, we can live again? The answer to all of that and more is not within us. The answer is Jesus, who is the Christ of God. It's the truth. John 14, Jesus is trying to ready his disciples for what's coming next. He's going to die and they're going to be lost. And he says to them, don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's place are many rooms. If it's not so, wouldn't I have told you? And why would I tell you? I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you so that you can be with me, so you can be where I am. And he says, you know the place. You know the way to the place. You know the way. Bless their hearts, the disciples don't know. Thomas speaks up for him and says, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And I wonder what Jesus' face looked like as he said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. We're wrapping this up. I can't tell you exactly what lies ahead of you. I don't know what will happen to you tomorrow or next week or next month or through the summer. I don't know if you'll make it through. But I can tell you this, whatever happens, you just keep following the Lord. Don't you dare take your eyes off of him. He is the way. It may seem impossible to everybody, and maybe it is, but to the Lord, it's possible. Don't you dare take your eyes off of him, as the Hebrews writer says it, and I'll leave you with this. Let's run with perseverance the race marked out before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. He's already gone before us. He's done it. In his words, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Walking ahead, walking by faith, fixing our eyes on Jesus. It's the only way to go. Let's stand and sing. Come if you need.
What can wash away